Welcome to this explainer on what is, hands down, the ultimate trap in human foresight. Okay, let's start with a scenario that I can almost guarantee is all too familiar to you. You've just mapped out the perfect project. You've got your milestones set, your timeline is beautifully organized, and you are literally 100% certain you're going to crush this goal well ahead of schedule. But, spoiler alert, you won't. Fast forward just 3 weeks, and suddenly your budget is completely blown, you're working way past midnight, and your flawless plan? Yeah, it's completely fallen apart. Today, we're going to explore exactly why this keeps happening to us.
I mean, think about it. Have you ever confidently told your boss or maybe your partner, "Oh yeah, I can definitely get that done by Friday," only to find yourself frantically scrambling on Sunday night, right? If your perfectly crafted to-do lists constantly turn into these chaotic rescue missions, you really need to understand something important. Missing these deadlines? It's not about laziness. You didn't fail because you didn't work hard enough. Actually, you failed because your own brain tricked you into a massive cognitive blind spot.
Which brings us to part 1 of our problem, the illusion of the perfect plan. Let's dive right into this by looking at exactly how your brain processes predictions whenever you face a new challenge. Because when you look ahead, your brain doesn't actually see reality. It sees this perfectly engineered fantasy. Psychologists call this the planning fallacy. It's basically a glitch in our mental wiring that causes us to systematically underestimate how long projects will take, while at the exact same time we wildly overestimate how likely we are to get these highly optimistic outcomes. Essentially, when looking ahead, you focus entirely on your specific, idealized plan, and you just assume, you assume every single thing it is going to go exactly right.
It's almost like a split screen in your mind. On one side, we have your fantasy plan. You assume every deadline is met, your team performs perfectly, 0 emergencies pop up. You're living in a world where friction literally doesn't exist. But on the other side, that's the actual path. And that path is completely covered in unexpected landmines, sudden complications, and massive delays. It's like you're staring through a perfectly clear telescope at the finish line, completely ignoring the bear traps sitting right at your feet.
So let's move on to the agitation phase here and look at what happens when we start ignoring reality.
Let's see exactly why this cognitive bias is absolutely lethal to your success, and frankly, why it drives elite strategists completely insane. Because the most terrifying part of the planning fallacy is that it happens even when you have extensive experience. You could literally have a graveyard of past project failures, like that massive website redesign that took 6 months instead of 6 weeks, but your brain? It just deletes that history. It totally ignores it and whispers to you, okay, the last 3 times were a total disaster, but this time will definitely be different. And this ties directly into what's known as overconfidence bias. Because we tend to severely overestimate the accuracy of our own judgments, we completely fail to account for those unexpected delays. And look, because you don't expect complications, you naturally don't invest enough time or effort into contingency planning or risk management. You are essentially walking off a cliff wearing sunglasses, totally confident in a bridge that just isn't there.
And the crazy thing? This bias doesn't discriminate at all. It infects absolutely everything. It derails your personal improvement goals, it messes up your daily to-do lists, it wreaks total havoc on software development timelines, it causes massive construction projects to balloon in cost, and it completely undermines huge multi-million-dollar government and corporate initiatives. Seriously, everyone is susceptible to this.
So let me hit you with a bit of a cynical reality check about just how mathematically delusional human optimism really is when predicting outcomes. When people are asked to predict how likely an event is, they usually give ranges that are way too narrow. And for some reason, they absolutely love picking one highly specific number, 5%.
But here is the stark reality behind that number. Events that people confidently claim have only a 5% chance of happening, they actually occur 20 to 30% of the time. That is huge. Your optimistic estimates aren't just a little bit off. They are mathematically completely divorced from reality.
All right, so let's jump right into the solution, strategic calibration. How do we actually fix this? How do we destroy this illusion of fake optimism and start building plans that can actually survive the real world? Well, we have to deploy a systematic 3-step cognitive framework. Let's call it the reality override. These are the exact cognitive tools used by elite strategists to literally force themselves to look at contradictory evidence so they can bulletproof their plans.
Step 1 is mastering something called reference class forecasting. Basically, the next time you evaluate a project, you have to stop obsessing over its unique special details. Actually, scratch that. You need to completely ignore them at first and use base rate analysis instead. What you do is identify a broad category of similar projects from the past. That's your reference class.
and you calibrate your expectations based on the statistical distribution of those actual historical outcomes.
This specific shift in how you ask questions is everything. Instead of asking, how long will my project take, you absolutely have to ask, how long do projects exactly like this typically take? By making that one little change, you force your brain out of its idealized fantasy. You strip away your own supposed special circumstances, and you anchor your timeline to cold, hard historical reality.
Okay, once you have your base rate, you move right to step 2, deploying prospective hindsight, which is more commonly known as a pre-mortem. This is an absolutely critical cognitive debiasing technique. Instead of trying to predict what will go perfectly right, you're gonna flip it. You intentionally imagine that your plan has already failed spectacularly.
So here is exactly how you execute the pre-mortem. You put yourself in the future. Imagine you are looking down at the smoking ruins of your completely failed project, and then you work backward to identify the exact specific causes of that failure. By standing in the hypothetical ruins of your own ambition, you can easily expose all those unmitigated risks that your overconfidence had previously hidden from you. It's a real game changer.
Then we hit the third and final step, which demands that you simply consider the opposite. Whenever you form a highly confident conclusion about your budget or your timeline, you don't just accept it. No way. You put it under extreme deliberate pressure to completely stress test your own thinking.
You literally must force yourself to generate arguments for the exact opposite position. If you think a certain step is going to take 2 days, actively hunt for the evidence that proves it will take 2 weeks. By forcing your brain to argue against itself, you completely strip away the illusion of those best-case scenarios.
So, let's wrap this whole thing up with the takeaway: cultivating intellectual humility.
We've covered the mechanics, right? But to truly master this framework and defeat the planning fallacy permanently, you need one ultimate psychological cheat code. You must cultivate intellectual humility. Now, the goal here isn't to paralyze yourself with toxic self-doubt, not at all. The goal is to maintain a confidence level that is strictly calibrated to the actual reliability of your thinking. You need to assume that your very first impression is probably wrong, and maintain this unshakable intellectual humility as you plan.
A genuine master of strategy knows deeply that their brain naturally wants to show them a fantasy. So now, you have a choice to make. Will you continue to rely on those optimistic, rosy analogies that inevitably lead to blown budgets? Or will you start anchoring your decisions to the hard, historical data of past failures? Ultimately, you have to choose whether you're going to trust the cognitive illusion or the actual data.
You really must strip the illusion away. By anchoring to base rates, running brutal pre-mortems, and forcing yourself to consider the opposite, you can finally build plans that are rooted in unshakable reality. Always plan for the worst. So I'll leave you with this final thought. When you map out your next major life goal, will it actually survive the reality override, or is your brain already setting you up to fail?